we're doing that.
Oh, did we?
Well,
We're
you're
moving.
back now, so
We're moving. Okay.
let's see how it goes. Little dicey. I think the Wi-Fi's are freezing.
Literally, maybe. Well, we had a really nice day today, but we have been getting some early fall cold shit sporadically. So nothing's outrageous quite yet. I've actually had people reaching out to me going, "Shouldn't you guys have snow by now?" And quite honestly, we really don't. I don't think I've ever seen snow here in November. Maybe if you did, it's like just there and gone all in the same day, but it's usually not till December. But we're getting like chilly mornings. Like I have seen negative Canadian temps, like -1 so
Oh.
far. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I know some friends back in Ontario woke up to some white stuff. Steve from Altered Stangs posted up because he just made it back from his big road trip, and my cousin Jeff, who like Windsor, kind of same thing. Don't see snow very often, so he had a dusting. Whereas our friend Mr. Butler apparently had a couple inches today.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
Which is so
So
weird.
sorry for any of those that are dealing with that white stuff falling from the sky.
Yeah. We did. This will break your heart a little bit. We did have a bit of a scare for the possibility of some. And because we live in the mountains, we'll get our weather reports can be weird. So it'll report for like the mountain passes, and those will be sent out as like, hey, everybody beware. And it's more, you got to read between the lines and go, okay, just because, or just in case you're traveling, you need to beware. But all of us down in the air quote lower elevations will be all right. But anyway, the road crews who are paid by our tax dollars, right? So any opportunity they get to go out and fiddle fuck around and ruin the roads for the rest of the year, they're all over it. So they were out laying down the brine the other day on the roads.
Ah,
I know, and like you see that and just go, fuck. I know all the Southerners don't know what the hell it is that we're talking about, but it's just imagine like a weed sprayer attached to the bumper of a 1-ton truck, and it's just laying down this line of what looks like kind of half used oil, right? It's kind of this like, it ain't tan and it ain't fully black, but it's just this beigey, awful, awful shit that eats cars from the inside out. It's awful for your car. And I seen that shit
yeah.
and I'm like, no. Now it does over some days dry and it does work wonders. Like I guess you got to give it that. On paper and actually in theory in practice it works because if it snows where you see those lines that they've whatever sprayed all over the road, it does not freeze at all. It stays liquid, but it's the liquid that will quite literally eat the paint off of a license plate. It,
Yeah.
it's violent shit.
No, it
So,
is.
yeah. Anyway, I guess it's that time of year that we're dealing with it. So, um, dude, I thought we could come in a little hot tonight on topics and just not even warm the oven, like just fucking ram it in. Let's talk about this 3, 4, 500. I don't even know what velocity restorations FoxBody. Like
Yeah.
I, now I think we should do this justice, okay? I'm pretty sure I already know where the FoxBody community is going to land on this one. It's probably right where we are too. However, let's do our best to try to maybe play both sides a little bit. I'm going to find it really hard to play the side that's going to be kind to this scenario, but I think we should try.
Well, I agree. I'm with you. Let's just
Okay.
rip the band-aid off because everybody's talking about it. There's definitely pros and cons. I'm going to start off with my summary of it would be
And you saw it too,
it,
right? just
I
for the
did see
record?
it. I
Okay,
did see it.
perfect.
So I'm going to start with a statement and then, we can go into your perspective maybe as somebody who wasn't there and is going
Mhm.
through and seeing what the posts are. And then I can come back based on what I actually saw in person. And I actually spoke to one of the builders who built the car as well.
Okay.
So if I had to summarize it, I would say it's exactly what a Resto-Mod shop would build that are not experts of a Fox body.
Yeah, so maybe put another way, like, you know, haven't been in the trenches with them like the rest of us have been for years and years and years.
Correct.
Maybe got
Like,
picked up the odd mag, maybe their friend had one. Like they just literally it'd be like, I don't know, going and redoing a Barracuda, right? And it's
yeah.
your very first Barracuda. Let's just look at what's available online for shit that we could restore it with and let's fix it up.
Yeah, and it's sort of the uh I'm trying to use some analogies here to describe it, but
Maybe your dad's Corvette would be a good analogy.
well, no, because like you can use Resto-Mod because this is sort of the first of its kind, right? Because if we took away the word production and we took away the dollar sign, which is very unclear and maybe based on options and stuff like that. I haven't done my digging. So for
Mm,
anybody that has done digging or they know a solid number, it really doesn't matter because we know it's well over um,
two.
you know, two at a minimum. So if you're going to spend over $200,000 on a Fox body, as a Fox body enthusiast, there's going to be a reasonable expectation of the way things are done and the parts that are used to demand that kind of money. And that's where those expectations kind of quickly divide away. So, like Roadster Shop chassis, we have an expectation because Roadster Shop chassis are used on countless resto mods that are out there from stuff that's from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Now we're talking about a car that's in the 90s that has now been resto modded. So, with that said, you don't put a Roadster Shop chassis underneath something and use siliconed in reproduction Daniel Carpenter quarter windows.
Oh,
Like that
this
is
happened?
probably yeah, like there's a lot of DC stuff on there. So and I'll get more into that, but that's just sort of there's a divide. And I think
Okay.
that that's where we get people like Donkey Fix It not holding back whatsoever onto his opinions. I don't
Yeah.
know if you saw his stories.
Yeah.
And then some of these other people, then we have like some ignorant comments about, that the frame's so heavy, blah, 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 this and that. The next thing, they're just like uneducated trolls. Um, but yeah, I think that that's what it is. It's just like, okay, a hot rod shop decided to build a Fox body and nobody had the intimacy with Fox bodies like, say, we have. So when you see that price tag, you're a little like, that's where
What are
the
we paying
disconnect
for?
starts happening. Not to say that there isn't a possible market for a $250,000 Fox body. I do believe there is, but and I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just sort of
Right.
trying to set the playing field of what we're seeing and hearing, and what some of the discussion points are. So I'm really interested to hear your take based on what you've seen and the noise and everything else. And then, I'll go through exactly what I saw and try and describe it best I can.
Okay. Um, I know this is a tough one to start out like on, right? Because you just have a million thoughts in your head. So trying to cohesively bring them into a conversation that makes sense is a little tricky. But um back maybe just first and foremost, like regarding the price. I'm with you. I don't know. I've heard a lot of 300s and I've heard some 400s. I think 400 plus is probably the highest I've heard. But I have been on their website and I've checked out some of their other builds. They've got a whole they seem to navigate or gravitate towards 60s, 70s, uh F-150s, 250s, 350s, whatever. And for what it looks like based on what I can tell on the website, beautiful looking trucks. But these things are like, it seems like every single one of them is like 339 to $369,000 for a regular cab long box pickup. And I'm going like, hmm, the math isn't really mathing here for me. Now, granted, I know that this is where it'd be really nice to speak with someone where they could lay out for you like overhead, like kind of all the nerdy accounting stuff. Because, like, from just the average individual that is, say, half ass gifted with some hand tools and they can build their own car, as we all sit and see these price tags and stuff, and we're all going like, what are we talking about here? Right? Like that doesn't even line up or make sense. I can go on Ford's website and check out what a crate 5 liter is. Like, how does this all work? Right. Anyway, so that's, I think, probably most people's approach. Right. And you got some people a little more rowdy than others with what they're willing to put out there in the online comment section. Right. But anyway, long-winded way of getting to my point of like what was my first impression. I mean, I think it looks like a very nice car. However, is it a car that if it was lined up in and amongst the rows and rows and rows of hundreds upon hundreds of Fox bodies at Foxtoberfest, would I run to that car? No, like not at all. You know,
Yeah.
it just looks like a black coupe with a nice set of wheels and a pretty schwanky set of brakes on it, you know?
Yeah. So I'd say in that specific regard, show car, black notch, CCWs, the biggest miss, especially being featured in the Roadster Shop booth, was that it should have been up on some sort of ramps or stands with some mirrors under it
Right.
so that people could actually see the chassis underneath the car. So whatever. Shame on Roadster Shop, really. So, for anybody that's not aware, the Velocity car was not in a Velocity booth. The Velocity car was being featured in Roadster Shop's booth as a completed build on a Roadster Shop chassis. And Roadster Shop actually goes around at SEMA and they have these super cool plaques as a finalist that they do themselves with like a gold, I want to say like a wrist chain that it looks like, and they put in like whatever contender finalist for best built on Roadster Shop platform. So
Okay.
you will see Roadster Shop cars all within and because obviously the frames are used throughout a tremendous amount of builds. So SEMA is kind of one of the voting grounds for Roadster Shop to go out and um, vote on some of the best builds on their chassis. So with that said, Velocity's car was within Roadster Shop's booth itself. They did have the cutaway slash right skeleton car there, so you could technically see what the chassis, the same thing that was revealed last year. So no surprises there. But just coming back to that point, Roadster Shop should have asked them to put it in the air so that people could see what's going on underneath and get a better representation of what it is. So that's
Totally.
sort of in terms of Fox bodies getting lost in sight. Now, this was really, I want to say it was the only Fox body in from a booth standpoint. I think there was two notches doing one of the drift events, but that was like outside drift car shit. So it was kind of a one of one. So when you saw it, it wasn't like, if there was something else there that was flashier or brighter or whatever, that could get it lost in the mix. But yes, it was very, very subtle. Now, with that said, Um, if you were going to do a production run of something, and
Mhm.
this is what sort of I can appreciate the concept because I've considered the concept myself. Like if I had 10 coupe shells and I, um, dipped them all, acid dipped them all and had them all epoxy primered, and they were all blank canvases to start with. And chances are they're going to be four-cylinder cars when you find that, which this car was a four-cylinder car as well. So just for anybody curious, this Velocity car was a four banger to start with. So if you were going to do something like that, you would want to keep things as simplistic and as timeless as possible to appear to a wider audience. So I can sort of see the expectation of black is going to be a color, white would probably be a color, red's going to be a color. You're not going to see shit like yellow or gotta have it green or grabber blue or any of these things. Like, unless they were doing, hey, here's the
You pick your
base,
color.
you want an individual color, this is going to be the add-on on top of that to do it. So CCWs, of course, it's sort of like, who isn't going to like a nice CCW? So I feel like they nailed that particular portion of it. The paint work was phenomenal. I'll
Right.
give it that. From the exterior standpoint, couldn't see underneath the car again because
Mhm.
it's on the ground on the floor. The engine bay, which I'd be curious to know their approach if the car wasn't painted black. Let's say it was red. Would they go with a black engine bay? Because not all, a lot of old classic resto mods end up with a black engine bay because it's always sort of been, what I mean? It's usually black underneath the hood because of inner wheel wells and fenders and shit like that from the 50s and
Yeah.
60s and all that stuff. It's just sort of the way that it is. Maybe the firewall's body color, but everything else is. So this car was like a satin black underneath the hood, like radiator support. Because it was on the chassis, they cut out the strut towers. So they did have panels that were made and put in there, but it sort of looked like the bay was black so that it could hide as much as possible,
Oh, interesting.
or, or,
Right.
or allow things to blend in, if you know what I mean. So, like, the attention to detail in the bay, although it was very clean and simplistic with the way that the Coyote was in there, um, it was sort of underwhelming. And with everything being black, the car's black, the hood's, up and motor's pretty much black. You kind of really had to like look for things, but that's where my curiosity got me because I wanted to see how clean they did. And now silly things like the radiator hold down is like something that we remember, like that single plate that utilizes the like aluminum plate that goes
Yep.
over, the oldest trick in the book of cleaning up your engine bay in like the 90s.
Yep.
Um, it had one of those, right? And not, and maybe this is a timeline thing. Like maybe the engine bay, they didn't have enough time to get it to where, because makers just released their product, but like there's other options out there to clean that up. The little L
Mhm.
brackets, that you can fiddle fart use as a rare, like they literally look like they were just rattle canned and, stuck back on there. So,
It
not that it
almost looked like
wasn't.
it had sorry, buddy, not I'm kind of
Yeah.
pulling you away, but not really, like, keep going down that path, but speaking of fiddle fart, it looked like it almost had fiddle fart, like, speaker covers and, like, map pocket area.
So, I don't know if those were fiddle fart or if they made those themselves. I'll get to the interiors,
Okay.
um, right after this. Um, so, yeah, I think just that from the engine bay and all that, knowing that the strut towers were cut out of the car, and this is, to my knowledge, the first car to be shown on the chassis, I probably would have put a little bit more focus in there.
Mhm.
Um, Now again, it's SEMA. Like there's so many things that are unfinished or so close to, deadline. But with that said, um, maybe they could have presented it differently or managed the expectations. But so that's sort of where there could have been some room for improvement. from my perspective there. Drivetrain, obviously, yeah, it was a Coyote, whatever, with the Whipple and 10R80 behind it. So it's an auto car, which a lot of people are like, oh man, it's auto, blah, blah, blah. But all the people that are jumping up and down about that is probably never driven a car with a 10R80, let alone a Fox body with a 10R80 in it, because you'd be hard pressed once you drove that, especially if you had paddles or, button shift or whatever. Um, you'd be hard pressed to want to go back to a manual car. And
Well,
the
and
market,
800 plus
yeah,
fucking horsepower. Like, you know,
yeah, no,
good
exactly.
luck
And then,
fucking driving that with a stick.
yeah, and who's the market, right? Like,
Mhm.
older
Big
dude
time.
with some money at that point, you know what I mean? That doesn't want to put a clutch pedal in. They want the power, they want the amenities and the luxuries and everything else. Like that's exactly the setup that I'm doing in the black notch that I got at my shop with the hair up on it. It's a 10R80 because yeah, same thing. The guy doesn't have to want to worry about manually shifting gears. So um I think there was a lot of noise, like I said, around that, but that's just people talking shit, in my opinion. Um, the interior is probably something that there was a few things in there that did impress me, but kind of was like that lack of knowledge thing. So this was an optionless car, I'm assuming, because it had manual armrests on the door panels, but it had the window switches in the center console. So
Yeah.
because it was a 10 or 80 car, an auto car, and they so there's no parking brake, that asked the question, they just said, if we do automatics, we don't worry about a parking brake, use park in the transmission and that's it. So they custom built that center console with the window switches in there, which look pretty good. The seats, again, kind of timeless, like not ugly like a Fox seat, not necessarily a Recaro, or if they were a Recaro, they did not represent it was some sort of, I don't know, maybe there were
Recaro.
Corbos that wrapped. I don't know.
I
Um,
think I saw something like I think they are a Recaro. But yeah, like not kind of the go-to, LX Recaros that everybody uses. Like, um, yeah, a bit of an aggressive pattern, I thought too. Like, this is
yeah,
getting like grandma's couch aggressive,
yeah.
you know?
So I probably, like, if it were me, it would have been like leather or Alcantara or the
Yeah.
mix of the two or something like that, because they had some Alcantara suede on the top part of the dash, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly, which I
Yeah, it looked like
liked,
they flocked it or something.
but they didn't like carry it through. And like what I really liked, because this was an idea that I have for an upcoming build of my own, was the rear plastics were leather wrapped and or whatever, pleather wrapped, but looks like leather, right? And then where that transition point is, if you've got a gray interior, kind of where your quarter window area is, and that plastic would be black, and there's
Yep.
that seam, they
Mhm.
actually stitched, like double stitch seamed that transition spot, so into the wrapping, which I thought was really clean, and I like that. So, it was all of those cool elements that they're capable of as a shop. And I think, your research on the website, looking at some of the builds that they did and everything else, it's capability. I believe it's there. It's just one of those, the experience of specifically doing a Fox is a little bit different. So getting back to Daniel Carpenter quarter windows that are siliconed in, all of the trim was all Daniel Carpenter reproduction stuff. So, it just, and it hadn't been recoded. It was kind of like out of the box.
Mm.
So the window run channels, those were DC. I could tell right away looking at them versus, that's so. And if people are wondering, well, what else should they have used? Well, number one, quarter horse has the injection molding for the factory quarter windows that Fox Resto used to do. So to me, with that price tag, you got to go with those windows.
Yeah.
Um, Fairchild window run channels from Rock Auto are far superior and fit just like factory. I get it. Some of the like the door trim molding that runs along kind of the glass and the belt line there. But like coat, sand, prep, and coat everything so it's all consistent, right?
Mhm.
That'd sort of be my approach there. But um, it's it's a tough thing to try and argue because here's the other thing to keep in mind too. So let's say whatever. Let's say the cost of the car by the time a clean four-cylinder shell, by the time you have logistics taken care of and it's sitting there and at your door and transport and everything else, let's just say you got 10 grand into a really clean shell, especially by the time you stripped it down. Um, Something to that caliber, probably 30 grand in paint. Then you get into the engine bay that you're cutting out strut towers, you're doing modifications to the floor and everything else. You're painting the underside of the car, and doing all these preparations for the chassis and for whatever else, which is probably another 10 grand. So we're at 50 right there. The fully loaded Roadster Shop chassis would have been 30K at a minimum. So we're
And
at
it's the
80.
spec one, right? Like the bolt-in one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which they did say it went in extremely easy. It was just as easy as the instruction manual, which the instruction manual is pretty thick. I've got it. Um, so they said they didn't have any issues. It was very straightforward, to clearance out, do whatever you have to do. So, like I said, minimum 30 there, probably 32 ish or whatever. But so we're at 80 grand. Then you have your Gen 3. I think it was a Gen 3, your crate
Mhm.
motor, and everything else, and the Whipple. I believe there was a Whipple on there.
Yeah.
I was too busy looking at everything else. So that's going to be that with the control packs, another 20, right?
Yeah.
Um, Plus your 10R80, which is, I'm assuming, built and new. Call that another 5 grand. So what are we at? 105.
Yeah, we're over 100 now.
Uh, Wheels and tires, CCWs, Michelin Pilot Sports, whatever. You're probably 7 grand in your wheel and tire combo. So we're like over 110. Quarter glass windows, even though they're Daniel Carpenter, all the trim, the taillights, the headlights, all that shit, call another 2,500. All the interior stuff that you have in there, minimum 10 grand, leather
Yeah.
wrapping, Recaro seats, updating all your plastics, everything else. So call it $1.25, easily in hard parts,
Yeah. Pre-labor.
pre-labor. There's got to be, I don't know. This is going to be subjective, right? This is where things
Yeah.
start falling apart. But let's take that out for a second. If you're a shop that's going to sell this car as a production car and it's literally turnkey without like the whole, hey, bring me the car back in 500 miles, or so that we can do the oil change and we can nut and bolt and make sure everything's tight and everything's good, or like, so all the shakedown, this is the assumption, needs to be out of it, and just literally like you're buying a brand new car that you should have zero issues to worry about other than major service intervals.
Yeah.
That right there, and who knows if they offer like some sort of warranty, that I don't know. But if you are buying that sort of completion in this expectation that they've created, like that's got to be worth 25 grand.
Yeah. See, this is where it gets tricky, like you said, about the subjective nature of it. Because the whole time through this, like a topic that I wanted to move towards is like, let's try to imagine in a cartoon manner what the buyer of this vehicle looks like, right? Now we don't have to like whatever describe their features, but you know what I mean? What does this person do? What type of net worth are we talking? Because for me, I do not think that there are too many of those individuals out there. And if they are out there, they're like our boy there that's building the pace car. You know what I mean? Like this is going to be a boutique
Well,
style build.
so that's where the escalation of the price goes up so much. So if we go back to where I said, oh, if I had 10 cars, if I had 10 cars and I did a pre-order and I said, sort of like Celine did with, you know, um, the
The
SA
SA10s.
or SA10s, here's what you can pick from. And I say, it's a Godzilla, period. You're not getting a Coyote over it. You're getting, so I already know I can order 10 Godzillas. Then maybe it's okay. Do you want a T56 or do you want a 10R80? Um, Maybe two or three different wheel choices. You're getting Recaro seats, one or two pattern options, um, color options, all these things. So you can create yourself an assembly line of production that's going to help reduce and minimize your costs, because obviously if you're doing, you know what I mean, you're dipping
Bulk
10
ordering.
cars at once, or you're prepping out, or you're doing, you know what I mean, rolling one chassis under another car, after another, your efficiency is going way up instead of doing this custom a la carte, for everything. And that's where all of those tedious, hours come in. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, this guy wants the, dash in Alcantara. This guy wants it in leather. This guy wants this stitching. This guy wants that. He wants the buttons and the armrests and the doors properly. He doesn't want them in a custom center console, or, this guy's got a bigger budget to do this versus that.
Yeah.
Um, that's where you start getting into the Martin brother style S stuff. And
Project
that's,
management shit.
yeah, and that's going to be your guy with really deep pockets that's trying to build a statement versus, say, something that limited production run, want to enjoy it, don't have the time to build it, or maybe the know-how to even build it, or the whatever else. So that's where I'm really curious where that price point lands. But like, you can't, being at 100 and a quarter, you couldn't expect really anything from a shop that's got all the competent employees to be able to do it and hit timelines, have your expectations managed and everything else. Like, you just can't operate and do that for under 200 grand. Now, they could do that car for 200 grand and get rid of a lot of the things that were, I guess, improvement points to the car. So I'm not saying that car, I'm saying it should be that car plus a little bit better on the shortcomings that I discussed. Um, but it's still going to land around 200 unless you start cutting corners. There's just no way to do it, because think about it, that, like, the emerald green notch that just went for 140,000. You could
Uh-huh.
not have a cleaner. So just imagine you bought that car because you wanted something that clean and crispy. If you wanted to make that a Resto-Mod, 32 grand, on take the subframe out and whatever and roll the Roadster Shop chassis underneath it, so now you're at 170, and then take that 30 grand that I already talked about, the Gen 3 Coyote with the Whipple and the control pack in there. Boom, 200 grand.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
no matter how you cut it. And again, you know what I mean? Like, not to say that car was worth 140, like, it's really, we talked about it. We were all around the 80 mark, right? But
Yeah.
um, there's still wheels and tires. There's all those other things in there. Like, for anybody who thinks that it's under 150, you're nuts, because you can barely buy the parts. Whatever you guys think labor is worth, whether you think labor is $20 an hour or $200 an hour,
Yeah.
that's up for you as an individual to decide where you're happy with. But this day and age, finding a shop that has people that can take on a project and get it done, is hard enough, and we know what labor rates are. So that's ultimately where it falls. Now, um, And I don't think there's anything wrong with the labor. I think it's just kind of some parts needed to be improved and just maybe a little bit more attention to detail to some of the FoxBody stuff.
Yeah. And that's obviously coming from, well, if you're listening to this podcast, you know exactly how where Chris and I land in the spectrum of people. Like we fucking been around these things for many, many years. So I think we're probably saying a lot of what everyone else is saying, just maybe trying to do it in a little bit more of an eloquent manner. Um, yeah, I know that. So back to this whole what does the individual that's going to buy this car look like? And now I'm not trying to say that they don't exist because, you know, I think it was Henry Ford that said it, right? There's an ass for every seat. And so they're going to be out there for sure. I just wonder if this is the correct, like, now I'm trying to approach this from, like, say, the board level of velocity restorations. Okay. Like, we're all sitting around trying to hash this out and, like, okay, what car do we want to pick to do this with? Even being the diehard, like, bleed fox body individual that I am, I don't know that I would recommend that you do it with this car because I am aware of all the different nuances of what makes the fox body community the fox body community, right? They're a budget car. They've always been a budget car. And if you try throwing this thing out there at 300-400 grand, I think you've missed the mark because now you're getting into, I don't know, like Johnny Cochran lawyer territory, like big money players. And like, unless like a fox body tickled their nuts when they were in high school, like it did us, why the fuck would they spend 400 grand on a black notch? I really don't think the market's that deep. Now, if you could build a reproduction car, so let me maybe just try to rewrite the script of how I would approach it. I don't think I'd be fucking around with a roadster shop chassis. Like, if I wanted to build a 2025 Fox body that was going to appeal to the widest audience possible, and I mean, tell me if you think I'm nuts here, but I've often thought if you could land somewhere between 75 to 100 grand, and I'm talking soup to nuts, done, new power plant, modular motor, all the rest of it, I think you'd have yourself a fairly decent market of people that would go, yeah, you know what? I don't want to fuck around with oil leaks and small block Fords and whatever. Like, I want all the new amenities and I want AC and I want, you know, blah, 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 blah. Um, and I see that there's actually some tangible value in a price tag somewhere between 75 and 100 grand. Like, I think you'd have people go, man, yeah, you know, because I mean, go down to the fucking local Ford dealership and buy yourself a macked out GT and see where you land. And then you're going to
Well,
be called an S550 fucking idiot. So,
I
you
hear
know,
what you're saying. However, a few things. And the first one being the Roadster Shop chassis versus not. And I'm going to do this. So, and I don't want to, like, I have a feeling I know what my feedback is going to be once I go down the Roadster Shop path
mhm,
at the end, but I'm going to do my best to compare and contrast the differences because, like, when you think of the cost of that chassis versus, let's say, not going the chassis and you're doing tubular K member and control arms and new struts and shocks or coilovers and brakes and your fuel tank and you're building out your rear end and doing all that, whether you're restoring it or buying all of those parts brand new, number one, I don't think you're going to be very far off. Um, the second part to that is, which I don't know, and I don't want to. Again, this will only be able to be. I'll only be able to say it once I've been behind the wheel and I've driven a car with the chassis. Is what's the comparison in, let's call it, a modern version of a full frame chassis versus what was the unibody that would have had subframe connectors on it, or maybe no subframe connectors, a Ladech style. But there's that. comparison point of it. But no matter how you shake that and how you shake, I guess, the overall paint and everything else, I don't know with a modular, hell, even with a small block, how you would be able to make any money at having an offering to what you're saying for 100K or less.
Yeah.
Because when you do, like, you'd almost have to build the cars in a way that Ford's expectation was when they built them when they were new, which was not perfect, not lining up 100%. Paint, meh. Interior, okay. Um, and just expect that people are going to be, all right with, I don't know, call it mediocrity. It would have to be a mediocre build to be at 100K to be able to touch all those components that you're talking about, give people what they want, unless you start getting into junkyard drivetrains and all this other stuff. But the problem is you start dealing with all these dirty parts, right? And like dirty old K member, and you know what I mean, rear end that you're getting blasted and painted and doing all of these things to try and you know elevate the car, make it restored, if you will. Like you would have to sacrifice so much to keep the budget down at that point that the question is, are you just there about the drivetrain, or are you there about the paint, or are you there about the interior? So if you're a shop and you're trying to market or promote this, you're going to have to give up on something. It's sort of like you're trying to put Speedmaster heads on a fucking dart block. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's, um, as a shop, you don't want to, and this is what I run into. I don't want to, if somebody has a car I worked on at a show that has horrible paint and I only touch their interior, that like, I almost just want to put a sign on the car like, yeah, Tip only did the interior on this car. Like Tip didn't build the car. Tip only did this. So when you're a shop, you kind of want to make sure that you're in control of what the brand and how everything looks. And that's going back to the Dutch car, Paul's car that had the bootleg body kit on it, and it's like, driving me nuts because it's like, the that's not how that kit should fit. That's not how that kit should necessarily look. Which, by the way, I did talk with Paul today, and super nice guy, really is. But that's sort of the thing. It's just hard to build cars this day and age. So, like,
Yeah.
at 100K now, if there were if you were building volume, like if you could get 500 of these things in pure assembly line and everything is like, I'd say, okay, maybe. Like you're buying enough in bulk, you're probably getting discounts, you're doing all the things to, you know what I mean, reduce costs and increase efficiency and everything else. But I don't know, man, it'd be tough. Be really tough.
Yeah. Well, I think what it boils down to is like managing the, well, I guess it's like, what's your mission, right? And your mission, I guess, is going to come out of what you imagine your clientele to be. So, you know, are you going for the clientele that is expecting that like 30 plus $1,000 paint job slash body worked car, like fucking airtight gaps and everything else? Or are we going like production level? Now, 1990s production quality versus 2025 production quality are two different animals too, right? So you'd have to whatever meander your way between merging those two worlds together. Um, because like that $140,000 green coupe, like, yeah, it could probably use some panel gaps looked at, you know what I mean? And no one's ever fucking loosened those nuts since 1992.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So anyway, I know this is like maybe a 12-hour conversation, but yeah, I think you'd have to manage that, to your point, right? Um, and I think the imaginary person that I picture in my mind that would warm up to, say, a 75 to $100,000 air quote resto-modded Fox body, right? Like a current day Fox is kind of like, I don't know that they're necessarily really like mentally attached to body gaps and fucking, like muscle machine of the year stuff. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They just want that really nicely painted, clean high school dream car that doesn't give them any of the grief of owning one that's, you know,
Yeah.
30 years old.
I
So,
think to your point in there, I do feel like a range. You could probably do an entry level version at 150 and then have something really nice up to like I would say to hit the sweet spot of things. My personal opinion is 150 to like 250. Anything above 250, and I think that that's where this car is falling into and causing so much hype. Like to put it in retrospect, is that I feel again, and this will be up to the rest of the world to decide when Ricky's 79 pace car is done by Martin Brothers. We know that car is going to be over $500,000 to build, which is, let's just call it twice the velocity car.
mm,
I feel like when people see the pace car, they're going to see where the money is.
well, yeah, you're going to see, well, especially when you see like the videos that you've helped them do and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like you see under the skirt.
Right. So I feel like that's where we're not bridging this gap of where I think if it was around the two mark or two and a half, it's this 400 number.
Yeah.
There's $150,000 kind of lost in this picture, which I think is what's causing a lot of the questions and everything else. Which maybe those are, it could be the same tactic as the NJ trucking whatever with this green coupe. Let's
Right.
put this
Just
fucker up for
cause some hype.
150,000. Listen to they had at 150. Me and you had a podcast. We cut the 150 in half. We said that car 75K, 75.
We lost him, folks. If you're watching on the YouTubes, it looks like Chris is waving to you right now. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. Um, yeah, I don't know. I cannot help but think to myself that I just cannot picture who the individual is in my mind that, oh, hey, you're back. I was kind of going on my own
It's
little rant
amazing.
there.
Yeah, the internet just loves to just crash right at a, dramatic point.
Hot. Can you recap it?
Where did I get cut off?
Oh shit. All I have is a picture in my mind of you waving with your mouth open.
I think that
Um,
was pretty much it, because it was just we were talking about, right, like the seeing the value and the difference, and that there's 150K that's creating
yeah,
this uncertainty. But and yeah, so yeah, the NJ trucking thing, we cut that
right.
their 150 in half instantly. So we're kind of doing the same thing. They're asking
Yeah.
400. We're saying it's only worth 200 because we're the guys that, you know what I mean, are being, I guess, the most critical of the situation, which means, according to what the green coupe sold for, there's probably a market of people willing to pay 300.
Maybe. You know, okay, I'm gonna try and be fair again. Going off your staking points, the Daniel Carpenter quarter windows and things of that nature. Uh, I doubt that any of these imaginary individuals that are gonna buy these cars are going to be concerned with that scenario. Because to them, like I put it this way, I don't think any Fox body enthusiast, okay, so I'm talking like bleed Fox body, is lining up to buy one of these cars. Like not one. And that takes a lot of your market away, right? So now, like I was saying earlier, you need to find that doctor, that lawyer, that whatever that just happens to see a flyer somewhere and go, "Oh, I almost forgot about those cars, right? And I don't care what it costs. I want one, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's the type of buyer you're looking for. And I actually think that type of buyer is also, in a roundabout way, the same type of buyer that's probably buying a roadster shop chassis. Like it's just the I don't give a shit what it costs
Yeah.
kind of guy. Um, and then you've got like that almost next level of the Rickies of the world that go like, listen, I am diehard and I've just got a whole bunch of spare cash here laying around and I want to build this thing. And I'd be disappointed in myself if I didn't one day when I die. And
So,
I think those two people are completely different universes.
which is fine, but there is a market for that universe, is what you're saying. Like, take
For
these
Rickies,
trucks. Well, take the trucks and stuff that you saw on Velocity's site for 300 plus, right?
yeah.
In your opinion, are those prices just as inflated, if you will, in that market as this Fox is, or are those trucks in line for what, like, priced accordingly for what they are?
Okay, interestingly, I can't even believe I'm about to kind of in a roundabout way justify this, but I the the type of individual that I see paying that much money for that pickup, I see there being a bigger market because the person that's going to buy that has like an 800-acre ranch in Utah where they just want that truck parked in the garage, sort of like just like the wife's going to decorate the house, the guy's going to decorate the garage with this 69 F-150, right?
So,
And but the Fox body, I can't get my head around. Like that's not going to be in that guy's garage
so
unless somebody tickled his nuts with one in high school. But he's probably always going to have to feel like he's got to explain why the fuck this black coupe, like what is that? Most of his friends are going to ask that question.
well, funny enough, though, I personally feel that the Fox, you're not giving the Fox body enough credit
Oh, come on out.
in that specific regard, because I think to a couple scenarios. I think about the gentleman that I had a consultation with the other week about that convertible that was asking me, if the 50K mark for it was too much. And this is a
Mhm.
black LX Vert. If anybody missed the pod, I was talking a little bit about it. And his garage was filled with Porsches and Mercedes and other exotic cars, and he wanted a Fox. I think of Justin, who owns the Atomic Fox, who did grow up with the cars, but now is at a level in his life of having Ferraris and Aston Martins and God knows whatever else. I think about the individual that owned my old white notch that I bought back, that white notch was surrounded by um, an OG Viper, Ferrari 458, Lamborghini, proper Hummer, all these things. So I feel like the Fox lives across all these different individuals, and a lot of these guys that have a lot more money than they did then, or they always had money, but they know that the Fox body is trending because you always see a Fox fits in with all these exotics and everything else in the weirdest way. It's sort of just been like adopted. And so, if you've got $1 million worth of cars in your garage already, and you're just like, oh, I can pay. Again, I don't like the 400 number, but I'm good at 250 with the
Okay.
assumptions like screw the quarter windows or whatever, doesn't matter. I just say, look, I know I can have this reputable shop, not some guy that I've never heard of before. I don't have time to wait 5 years for Martin Brothers or somebody similar to get on a wait list. Can I get this car within 6 months' time, turnkey, ready to go with whatever managed expectation of reliability?
Hmm. See, because the counter argument to this is, and it sounds like I know it kind of does sound like I'm shitting on the Fox here, folks. We got over 180 episodes. You know how I feel about these things. I claim I wouldn't sell mine for $1 million. So, like, just for the record, all right. But remember Regan there, Time Fox, and he told that story about hanging with some, deep pocketed individuals. And or shit, maybe I'm screwing the story up, but it was something to the effect of like, he showed up in his car and they were all like, "What the fuck is that?" Right? So, I mean, I don't know. I'm definitely wrong more than I am right, but I just I don't know if the two worlds merge all that well. It's just what my heart feels. And again, if I had all the money in the world, and I could have anything I wanted, it I'm Fox buddy through and through, like this shit is what's I think I would lose interest in a 458 in all honesty. Be like, I don't know. I like something that causes me some grief, you know?
Well, I think that that's
Gives
the
me
same
something
thing.
to
Yeah, like those guys want a little bit, they want to feel the power and everything else, like that raw American muscle. And I think, we've covered, like you said, in 180 episodes of why Fox bodies are so cool and the appeal and the weirdness of them and the attraction and the draw. So, like, there is enough market, there is enough demand. Um, I think that it's a beautiful car at the end of the day. Like, you would be hard pressed to even find a shop that's going to pump that out in a reasonable amount of time for you. And again,
Yeah,
that's what the assumptions, right? Like that you can get that car fairly quick, and have zero worries about it. And you know what the paintwork's going to look like. You know what everything else is like. Yeah, okay. There's a couple trim issues and whatever else. And the problem is us as pure enthusiasts, we're going to say, oh, we're going to build it and we're going to build it better because we know exactly what we like. But that isn't what that car is meant for. We're not, like you said, we're not going to buy that car. We
yeah,
would build whatever equivalent to what we want to that car. And we would be doing that for ourselves. Like, and I think that that's a very important point is that how many of us would say we are going to take $150,000 in hard parts to build a car for a customer that we don't know exists yet? Because
yeah,
that's what they did. So
yeah,
they have the right and the ability to ask whatever the fuck they want for that car because nobody else is doing that. Like, you take 150 grand as whatever, which is not a little amount of money in a car that sold for $15,000 brand new. And you say, I'm going to make that into a profitable business. Like, you got some balls, number one. They actually did it, number two. And if it's like the NJ thing and it's to whatever, create noise or maybe they only sell 5 of them, I'll tell you this because going back to me, if I were to do the 10 blanks, and I thought the same way, man. I thought, 75, 125, $1,000, you can knock it out. If I had to tried or to execute that or find a way to fund it or whatever, I guarantee you I'd bankrupt myself trying to do it. Um, it just wouldn't be feasible. So with that said, um, maybe even at 200 grand, maybe I still end up bankrupt. Like, you don't know. Like, it's um it's one of those things where I do want to give them credit for doing what they did. They are first to market on the chassis, and it's different, which is bothering a lot of people as well. Um, you know, whether it's a full chassis that they think weighs more, which it doesn't, folks. Roadster Shop has done a pound for pound comparison. 650 pounds of parts come out, 640 pounds goes in with the chassis. Now, if you do an aluminum drive shaft and a couple other things, it could even be less. Um, Automatic's different. some people are going to complain about the fucking coyote in there and say, oh, it should be original American small block power and blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like you just can't,
Yeah.
please everyone to that regard. So critical, yes, pricey, whatever, but like that's their right. And I think that's sort of where I want to leave that without like I don't want to like seem like we're chipping away at
Yeah.
something. I think like there's a lot of opinions and a lot of expectations that we're trying to capture in this conversation, but at the same time it's not a negative thing. It is a positive thing, at least I believe that it is, because like I said, they did it and it was there. um, Change and innovation and whatever is good. And the criticism's going to come. There's always going to be haters, and look at how many people are talking about it.
No, true. Hey, before we sign off on this topic, what are they doing with that console? It's all molded in and everything. Like it
Yeah.
looks like something from the 70s. Like,
So I think it's just one of those, again, it's bringing mentality of old school Resto-Mod in a platform it doesn't belong in.
right.
Kind of going back to my thing, like I'm sure, it's a bunch of people that do really good work because it is the quality of it's nice. It's just
Mhm.
like it just doesn't sort of fit. And the steering wheel, I think, was a love or
Yeah.
hate thing because they kind of took that whole section where the airbag should have been. It almost looked like a Batman steering wheel to me. Like, but again, that's just not my style. It doesn't mean that people aren't going to like it or whatever, but that's it's subjective because I know there's a
Yeah.
lot of time and effort that went into it.
Yeah. Like the going back to the console, like the question for me was the way I see consoles, and now again, this is coming from somebody that considers himself to be a Fox body enthusiast. It's like there's two ways to do the console. You got it or you don't. And if you want to get rid of having it, just go don't. Don't mold something in there that looks like a vinyl trash can upside down, you know? Like I'm trying to think of the car that it reminds me of. Like it's something from the 70s, right? Just like a
Yeah.
vinyl wrapped kind of smoothie, whatever. Because I'm sure that whole center section where they've moved the power windows and stuff to is MDF, right? So, and they were to the point where it's like, well, hey, do we do a console or not? Yeah, why the fuck not? Let's just mold our own in here, bondo it up, and wrap it, right? Whereas I would have been like, whoa, 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 just go no console. Okay. Cause now you're just getting into the realm of weird, right?
Yeah.
But again, yeah, you can say the same thing about the steering wheel. Actually, I want to say, didn't they still have an airbag wheel, but where the Ford emblem should be, they had velocity or something in there?
Yeah, but like there was no airbags. It sort of just looked like if the airbag was out, but or like they had a sunken in version of it. All right, I'd have to
Oh,
go through my pictures a little bit more. Like it looked so odd. I didn't want to look at it too closely because I wasn't a huge fan. But um,
right.
yeah, the console thing, I hear you, man. Like to me, it's sort of like you'd almost expect to have um, I don't know.
We lost him again, folks. We were having some issues with the internet here before we started. Oh, there you are. I was just telling the
Yeah.
folks we were having some internet issues before we even started recording. So here we're just still
Yeah, it just kinda,
coughing
like,
our way through.
keeps evicting me randomly, but, yeah, I was gonna say it's almost like, you'd expect the vintage Air because they have the older climate controls,
Yeah.
down in that console and everything else, like, really old school style, which is just I don't know, man, it's again, who knows what the challenges were or what the expectation is, or if they're just trying to get feedback, um, to see some of those things and how it's received, and then because it is the first one, like
Yeah.
sometimes you just got to throw some shit out there and then see what people's feedback of it is, and then maybe they're just gonna maybe they'll hear this and be like, holy fuck, okay, we got to clean up the engine bay and the rad support area and stuff. Like just put a maker's garage, the new piece in there, and you know what I mean? That's going to clean it up. A
Yeah.
nicer hood latch, like even the fiddle fart one, or something. You know what I mean? Just a few little basic stupid shit would go a long way and almost probably cost marginally anything, you know, in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, if
So
not the same.
yeah. So that's what I
Yeah.
mean. I think people shouldn't get so bent out of shape about some of the things, but yeah, we just got to find out where that extra 150K is going, or if just
Yeah.
people are willing to spend it. That's all.
Yeah, true. And I guess just see where this lands. Cause I mean, again, their website, you can go into their inventory, which is where I found all these old pickups and stuff. So I guess we can, in our own little way, almost monitor whether or not these things are selling. Cause we probably will not know, hear, or see one of these cars ever out in the wild, right? I don't think you're going to see one at Foxtoberfest, right? Cause that's where all us old greasy FoxBody enthusiasts go, right? Not the fucking big dollar guys that can spend 300-400 grand on a black coupe. But so I guess yeah, you could just monitor the website and see if a sold sign's written across one of their cars on there, right?
Yeah.
That'll probably be the only way we'll ever know. But I agree with you, man. It's, you know, kudos to them for doing it. Like you say, it's interesting getting your take from like the first hand seeing it, because we're all trying to like zoom in and see this shit from a distance on our phones or whatever, right? And it's like I had the same thought going through my mind. It's like it almost seems like whoever's sort of project managing this division knows but doesn't know. You know what I mean? Because there's these little things where you go like, oh shit, right? Like, or there's such a better way to do it, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But the person that's probably lining up to cut a check for that amount of money doesn't know any of those little nuances either, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it doesn't affect them. But to all the hardcores out there that are just yeah running around with their ginch on fire right now, I mean, we're definitely not the ones that are buying this car, right? But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it goes. Hopefully, see, like, I think what I would do if I was in, again, Velocity's boardroom, I'd say, hey, let's do the tour with this car, right? Like, let's get it out to that fella in LA there, like Autotopia,
Mhm.
or let's get, I don't know, maybe Leno wants to see this thing, right? And let him give us the once over on it all. And because the thing that I think we're all dying to see before we can settle out or let the dust settle on this roadster shop chassis is like, is it really that good versus tubular K member, tubular control arm, you know, like just going the old school route? Is it that fucking good? And I, I lean to the side of saying, yeah, it probably is. Like it just logically can't not be. But then you got the next hurdle to overcome, which is like, are you ready to cut a check for 30 plus thousand to have one all kitted out, ready to rock for you for your next project? Right. Like I just I don't think I am. Uh, you know?
Yeah. Well, you know, just like I said, it comes down to how extensive is your build and, you know, how far are you willing to go with it? Um, you know, if you're in a position where you really just need a new K member and control arms and some front end suspension stuff, you know, the car's already got subframe connectors on it and, you know, the basics, then, you know, sort of what's the point? But,
Mm.
you know, once you get into rear ends, brakes, fuel system, all these other things that can come, you know, preloaded on that chassis. Um, that's where I think you know, people should be maybe questioning or having a second look at, you know, the options that they have, um, you know, for something that would maybe achieve a lot more in less amount of time and kind of be similar in financial outcome. But like I said, probably first thing in the new year, I'll be able to do some pretty interesting comparative analysis on Roadster Shop versus not.
Right. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how all of this unfolds, right? Um, I like, I mean, there's another point that I wouldn't mind sneaking in here too, which is like, you know, is the Roadster Shop chassis kind of like, to use a similar analogy of us discussing like, you know, all these various parts that some people in their minds tell themselves that they have to have on their car as they're restoring it. And then they get them all on there and they're like, this sucks. Right? Like, why did I let the marketing team dictate what I'm trying to build here? Because now this thing's a fucking race car. It rides like shit. I feel every pebble on the road, like that whole thing. So it's like, is that like where the Roadster Shop chassis is going? Or
Right.
like I say, can you essentially, this is going to sound stupid and I don't mean it to be, give me some grace on this, ladies and gents, but like, can you technically achieve the same outcome, like you say, with the subframe connectors and like the old school way of doing it, right? See, because to me, like, there's an essence here that I personally like and want to honor of the Fox body. Like, War Admiral's car is a perfect example of this. You know what I mean? Like, it's a, if you want it to be, it's a sheep. If you want it to be a fucking lion with rabies, it'll be that too, right? And it still maintains the essence of everything that we know Fox, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't have a Roadster Shop chassis. It doesn't have, and in all honesty, like it's very like it's very well built underneath, but it's not like it's some outrageous, over the top, unobtainium fucking whatever. You know what I mean? It's still got the 8.8 in it, like it's just rear control arms. I don't even know which ones they are, but it's probably not like fucking 10 grand in rear control arms. Like it's kind of
Yeah.
just whatever. He's got Cobra brakes on it. You know what I mean? Like, I think actually he was one of those SVE kits
Yep.
that LMR rolled out, right? So like we're not talking wild, wild, wild bits and pieces, but that car has the essence that I think any real true Fox body enthusiast, like what we know about it, it maintains that. You've
Yeah.
driven the car.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's a fucking beauty. Or like another one that came to mind as I was thinking of this is that twin turbo Coyote car that Charles had or has or whatever, right? It's like, okay, modern day power plant, two big fucking windmills on it. And, but it's still just a unibodied white coupe, right? With a violent amount of horsepower. Um,
Yeah.
like, I don't know, it's almost like, yeah, like if you correlated this to what you're looking for in a gal, like sure you want somebody that can kind of class it up and maybe not throw drinks at the bar, but really likes to let her hair down in the bedroom. And I don't know, like when you get to that other end of things, it's like, have we lost the essence of the Fox? Or are we starting to?
Yeah. Well, I think the other thing as well is that when you're buying that chassis fully loaded, it's taking away, like, it's almost like you're buying a puzzle at that point and you're just kind of putting the pieces together. So it's not like, you're doing the control arms and you're installing the spindles and you're, you know, going
Yeah.
through all of, I guess, those things that we consider part of the build. It's almost like, okay, you've got something that's like complete and you just got to like bolt some shit together, which it's not that easy obviously, but um just sort
And
of.
part of like almost like part of becoming a man. Like if you got to go spend 30 nights in the bush and like live off fucking rocks and berries, you know, that's what happens when you got to do your own control arms and when you got to like, roll through the trenches. Whereas when you just pick the body up, roll the chassis underneath, 6 bolts later, you're rolling. It's like, wow, come on. That was a little too easy. You didn't even get a bleeding knuckle,
Yeah. So
you
I don't
know?
know, man. And the only other caveat to this that again we don't know, but I'm gonna hopefully put some proof into the matter is that when we're talking about these chassis being underneath these cars, generally, I think everyone in their mind is assuming a hard
Height.
top, whether a coupe or a hatch, that is not a T roof or a convertible,
Mhm.
because I think, especially in convertible fashion, I would like to think that that chassis would make a convertible night and day better.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Very true.
So, like, not, and that'd be the question, right? Like, is somebody out there going to be crazy enough to, because apparently nobody likes convertibles and they're worth nothing. So, why would you go
Yeah.
and throw $30,000 underneath one? You'd be insane. But, um, just saying, back to the point, because, like, yeah, even if you put subframe connectors underneath a convertible, no, like, it
Yeah.
helps, but, like, it's still not a coupe in terms of, like, the stiffness of the
Yeah.
car, like, it's, I don't know.
Do you think you're gonna see the Roadster Shop chassis make its way into the either straight line or road track world?
That's a good question, man. I don't know, like, I don't know, like, obviously, we see it, like, in the Good Guys shows, right? And that was kind of the neat thing about the War Admiral, is that it kept up with all of these, chassis cars. Now, with that said, all the cars that he was up against were all old school, like, heavy
Yeah.
cars. So those heavy cars, if they were performing, or if his car was performing as good as them and they had all their weight underneath them, and you know what I mean? So it's sort of like, well, are they performing better? I
Mhm.
mean, was he keeping up just because he was in a tiny little Fox body? Or was it because, truly, by design of what's underneath the car? So that, because, like, I always wonder, because I went to the Ride Tech booth as well. And right, I wanted to kind of see where their technology and everything was. And they're starting to build chassis as well now.
Hmm.
Not necessarily for Fox body, but they had another chassis that they had on display. I will say this: the weld and the finish of Roadster Shop was superior looking to that of Ride Tech. Um, but I know Ride Tech likes to do, like, take their stuff around the track and everything else, but we don't really ever hear of, like, the results, and, like, they got the SLA and they got all that stuff, but I feel like anybody that installs the SLA is going with the coilover setup and not necessarily the bag setup. So, um, those are all very interesting things that me personally, would like to know as well. Like, we
Yeah.
really need some comparisons of, okay, like, no subframe connector car, something that has a maximum motorsport grip package under it, maybe a Griggs setup, which you seldomly hear of. Kenny Brown has their, the hell's that rear IRS setup thing that they have out. So
Yep.
there's, like, all these things we don't. It's just sort of like some people are marketing their stuff better than others, and Roadster Shop's doing a damn fine job at marketing their shit. And now they released the IROC chassis this year.
Oh, cool.
So, um, and I think that that's just, maybe it's like a path of least resistance for some people. Like, I've said it where, and sort of like you said too, it's like everyone has always been so busy at, like, just throwing the catalog at what they think they should be putting underneath their car. Like, oh, you need these solid mounts and you need these Heim joints and you need these caster camber plates and you need this and you need that. And um, I think the the Roadster Shop chassis is kind of like taking a little bit of that guesswork and that whatever away, because if they chose components that were going to be shit and started selling chassis that were shit and rode like shit, they're not going to sell. So I
Yeah.
would like to think that whatever they're assembling and putting together is going to ride better than the so-called for off-road use only parts catalog that we've learned to see over the past couple of decades. And to the point where I went to the Coney booth and I was chatting with them about some custom valving and whatnot. And they said, and I said, I'm like, I honestly, I'm not a believer in coilovers, like not for the Fox body. In a European car or a car that the car was designed to sit on coilovers, I believe it works. But a car that was not designed for coilovers was probably designed that way for a reason. And he laughed and said that they're not doing coilovers anymore for that reason. He's like,
Mm.
how many people get underneath there and actually adjust once they get the ride height that they want? And it's like you can
Yeah.
get a better ride quality and you can dial in, you can have more control of your spring rates and everything else of having the traditional style setups that we're used to. So maybe maybe there's a little bit of that. Maybe it's just sort of like we've overcomplicated with a bunch of trash and junk. If there's a out of the box solution that works really well and it's proven and can outperform all this so-called noise that we've seen, maybe that's the ticket to success.
Yeah. Yeah, because if I was to answer the question about, does this make its way into the straight line or track, I could see it making its way into the track world, definitely not the straight line world, because look at what guys have been able to accomplish already with just the unibodied car and very
Yeah, but
little. Like, okay, let's throw like, a tubular front end on it. That's usually for weight more than anything, right? To dump a bunch of weight. And then you cage it and you fucking pretty much build a nuclear rear end and whatever. Like you're going down the track and like neck breaking speeds. So why, if we already have all that intel, would you go, yeah, you know what? I think we could get like another tenth by spending 30 grand on a. So I really don't see it going into the straight line world.
no.
Now, track world, like, which we haven't seen this car in a while, but remember that Foxzilla?
Yep.
Yeah, like something like that. Okay, road course type stuff. But again, I think you could almost apply the same argument I just did for the I think the straight line guys would make, which is like, guys, we're already going around here pretty quick. Like, is it going to be $30,000 faster? Like,
No,
I don't
I
know.
think that chassis, in my opinion, is 100% um, pro touring, street
Resto-Mod
driven
shit,
Resto-Mod shit. And that's, comfort,
which is
durability,
wild to think.
flexibility, and that's it. You know what I mean? That's where that lives. Because yeah, anything else is going to be tubular. Anything that requires roll cage, will be something where you're just fabbing the rest, or you're doing the fast track chassis, which
Yeah,
the pace car for all the power and everything else. It's kind of because you're welding. You got the frame and you're welding everything else around it to make a car off that frame essentially. So that'd be the frame you would use in the world, possibly, straight line or race or whatever else. And yeah, these spec chassis, purely street. Resto mod, more comfort, easier to, because you got to remember you're bolting that shit on in theory, right?
yeah.
So
Hmm. Interesting. Good grief. An hour and 23 minutes of that car. All right. How was the rest of SEMA, buddy?
it was good, man. It I guess more on a personal note, I kind of kept getting these little like flashbacks or epiphanies, if you will, of comparison of like when I went for the first time 15 years ago, or like the first couple rounds where it's like, you know, first time experiences, and you're waking up in Vegas with a beer in your hand and hungover the next day with the beer, another beer still in your hand, and just kind of different approach um to your time there and everything else. So that was kind of interesting, to, I guess, reflect on, right? Because you're like, have all these memories every time you like whatever see the casino or you go to a restaurant or whatever else. But the show really doesn't change much. Um, it's you got all the halls that are set up for like your wheel guys and your new product guys, and then like your main central hall, which has got, yeah, your roadster shops, your Edelbrocks, your vintage airs, your like you name it. The only company that wasn't there that I wanted to see was Universal Air. That they do a lot of air ride for universal applications. And I wanted to talk to them more specifically about the Lincoln because last time I was there, they were coming out with some stuff for the Continentals, but um, not as busy. Definitely saw a few like empty booth spaces that I don't know if people didn't show up or they didn't sell them off or whatever it is. So the show is smaller. And I think as a result of this whole efficiency, people or employers trying to justify spend. Oh, you're going to a conference or whatever. We don't need to send you there for seminars that you can do online versus going in person and paying for hotels and your drinking bill and all that. And I guess the proof of that is there is a massive stage in the main central hall that used to be occupied by Ford.
Okay.
And the biggest stage and platform in terms of showcase that I was always used to seeing Ford on. And this time around, which I think maybe last year because I didn't go as well, was Toyota. So I'm like, well, where the hell's Ford? That's fine. They're not on the big stage, but I would assume they'd be in where all of the other horsepowery aftermarket shit is. And I, go into the app so you can like look up vendors and everything else because the show is that big. Like you need like maps, it'll tell you how to get to the booths and shortest way there and all this other shit. Well, Ford was way out in the West Hall, which let's just say you're taking a shuttle. Like you can walk it, but you do it once and say you're never going to do it again. So you're either going to take the shuttle or the next day you go, you're going to get dropped off at the West Hall instead of the South or the North Hall. And um, surrounded by like PPF lighting, some off road shit. Like, so just if you think about your placement of where you should be as a vendor, I told Bill this. I'm just like, man, you tell whoever the fuck your boss is that as Ford, you guys have positioned yourself. And like it's one of those things where it's almost like if you're not going to do it, don't do it at all. Like the console you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And, not that the Ford display wasn't bad. Like they had the Megazilla there and some Coyotes and small, like all their crate motor lineup was all there. No giveaways or anything, but like just hidden way off. Well, hidden in terms of the hall, way off in the distance where probably gets the less amount of foot traffic and just surrounded by other vendors and products that don't belong. So, um, yeah, I told Bill, I'm like, get Ford to get their shit together because, like, yeah, if you're going, you got a bunch of crate motors there. Well, you're gonna want to go see Holly, or you're gonna want to go see whatever other accessory front end drive manufacturers or radiators for cooling for that motor, or fuck like Tremec for
Yeah.
transmission options that's going to go behind it. So instead, it's like, yeah, you got to go there, then go all the way to another hall to try and start looking at, or for your chassis to stick it under, like, um,
Yeah. Weird.
so that was kind of the weird thing there. So I'm just like, man, tell them to, increase their budget. It doesn't need to be they don't need to get it back from Toyota, but just maybe some better positioning. Um, they still had like their drifting shit outside and, all the big, huge lifted trucks. I was surprised to see, every time I go, I feel like car audio is going to be dying more and more and more, but there's still a pretty good representation of car audio and like a lot of like digital nav style screens, fancy mirrors that have, GPS and dash and reverse cams and everything built into them. So that was neat to see. But yeah, a lot of stuff on PPF, vinyl wrapping, lighting is big. I'm not sure if you saw the Oracle FoxBody LED taillight display. And one hole that I actually really like, it's above, it's usually with like collision and repair. Benpack had this fucking crazy lift, dude. It was called the
I've seen this.
Octaflex, so you can do the cab off. So I think
Yeah.
it's 12,000 pound lift internal, 6,000 pound with the external arms. Um, that was super cool to see. A lot of like storage solutions, like this lev rack thing, which I don't even know how to describe it. It's like floating shelving, like on casters that are above. So
Oh,
you can kind of like push everything down, and then like open up the sections or roll the sections over, and like it would increase so much square footage in anybody's shop that's got a lot of parts and shit hiding. Um, yeah, like the paint guns and paint booths and like inflatable shit and all this new technology, because you get a lot of the Chinese companies and a lot of like this, new age style stuff that you're kind of like, holy shit, that's cool. And everything from like masking tape to
oh yeah.
um, just everything. And Seymour, right? So I like seeing them to see what products that they have. So they have some new trim paints that they've released. So I'm going to be getting some of those. Obviously all the interior dye lineup that they have. And I don't know, man. Yeah, just if you haven't gone, it's worth going to, even though it might not be this like the same experience as I remembered 15 years ago. For anybody who's never gone, it's still um, an amazing show to check out, and just to
Right.
immerse yourself with like-minded enthusiasts.
Well, I think we can maybe turn this into a little bit of a heady thought experiment conversation because I recently heard a fella talk about. So the topic that he was discussing was how the world has kind of reached this point where, without us even really knowing it, or too many of us really knowing it, we've become less outgoing, and we don't. The one he kept using as an analogy is like, nobody's partying anymore. Like, nobody goes to the bar, and nobody, because to your point about what you're saying about what you remember at Vegas is like waking up with a beer in your hand and the hangover and the whatever. And I got thinking to myself, I'm like, I mean, sure, we're kind of out of our prime now, but like, do you know of any 20, 25-year-old guy that's like, "Hey, it's Friday. What bar are we going to? Oh, yeah, it's Saturday. What bar?" Or like, "Where do you go for cheap wings?" Like, does
So,
anybody, And there is more to this, but
no, I know exactly what you're saying, and obviously, there's part of me that agrees with that to a certain extent. Going back to me specifically, so the one night we took it upon ourselves to find a really good people watching spot, right? Get a late night coffee and people watch, which being there with Lewis and Laura, shop dad was there with his better half as well. And Lewis and Laura specifically, because we were all in Dubai at the same time at one point, and that was sort of like an 11 p.m. or midnight coffee, out on the main strip, people watching was like a pretty regular occurrence
in Dubai.
for us in Dubai.
Yeah.
Because like you can't drink coffee, or sorry, drink beer out on the street there. So like whatever, like we'd go out late night coffee and people watch. So we kind of wanted to do the same thing. And now the only reason why I didn't have multiple beers in my hands, just because I've been trying to be mindful of my health and avoid the carbs and the sugar that the alcohol and beer creates. So I was limiting myself on purpose. I would have drank a hell of a lot more if I wasn't in this mindset, and I would have probably drank even more so if someone like you or Charles that are good drinking companions,
Yeah, what are you
um,
trying to say here?
and influence would have been because fuck, it's Vegas after all.
Yeah,
So where I'm getting at is I would have liked to have partaked a little bit more. So it was on me. And it's not that I didn't want to party. I wouldn't party to the extent I would have 15 years ago, but I was very happy to see with the people watching
yeah,
how many, and as the night progressed, and got closer to midnight and whatever, I forget what time we finally, called it a night. But, you see like these 60-year-old dudes with their women, or maybe their women of the night,
rentals. Yeah,
their rentals. Um, but you can tell, right? Couple extra whiskeys that night, just the little bit of the stumble and feeling good. And some people kind of walking with like the Vegas ego,
yeah,
which like I
yeah.
never really, and that was one of my reflections. I'm like, man, I remember that one night going out, getting bottle service and walking around with the lit up fucking Dom P bottle, like I'm fucking God Almighty,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like it's funny, like you see the older guys and like these people that are just like, it's I'm in Vegas, fuck it, like I'm letting my hair down. So that was actually refreshing to see that it exists,
Yeah.
but it's almost to your point, like that's only happening when people are in Vegas. It's almost like it's Halloween and you get to dress up that one day a year and be whoever you want, and because it's acceptable because it's Halloween, versus saying you're gonna act and behave and do all that stuff back home every Friday, Saturday night.
Right. Yeah. So, okay, in your people watching, because this is gonna get us back to where I was originally going with all this. What would you say the average age of people doing that was?
So it was more older than younger, 100%.
Okay, right.
Now,
See,
with that said, though, dude, like I'm not gonna lie, we're in the Bellagio. You're paying 400 plus a night, minimum during that time. Um, Are young people in the Bellagio? I mean, like, I rarely. It's the same demographic that I'm used to seeing. Like I always kind of feel young to a certain extent
yeah,
when I'm there, because like I don't know, maybe you go down to Fremont Street or Old Vegas, or you get into some of the shadier hotels and casinos. Maybe it's a little bit of a like the MGM Grand or fuck somewhere that where
right.
Hakkasan, whatever that nightclub is that is famously known and all that shit. Maybe different. So I'm in the wrong demographic for this um the
Well,
situation, I think.
but I don't know if you are, buddy, because like I think our demographic or our vintage of human, we are very familiar with the bar scene and the going outs and the, carrying on. And the point that this fellow was trying to make was that today's 20 to 30-year-old isn't doing that. And, like gone are the days of going out for a pint or 12, right? And like I say, even like wing night, when we were young, it's like, where's 10-cent wings on a Thursday? Like, that was wing night or Wednesday, right? And I don't do people still go for wings? I don't know. Like that was a fucking event. Every
Well,
week we were going for
okay,
wings.
yeah, but like what's the cheapest wing night that you remember? 5 cents a wing, 10 cents a wing?
5, 10, yeah. They're now a buck or
What's the
more.
cheapest that you see now?
Yeah, a dollar.
And same thing to the point. Like, how much did we pay for beer back then? $2 a beer? A bucket for
Yeah,
10
like
bucks?
I want to
Something.
say, yeah, like I remember you could pay with a 5 and tip as well.
And now how much is it?
Well, yeah, it's true.
So that's what I'm wondering is it a
Yeah.
thing of choice, or has being 20s you're priced out of that lifestyle?
Okay. And you're actually kind of explaining the conversation that this guy was having with whoever wanted to listen to him, right? So he brings all these things up. and everyone, as a listener, you're going like, yeah, no shit. Like, I don't really know too many people that are doing that anymore. And then he sort of brought it into even our vintage where he's like, when was the last time you went out with just a group of friends and ripped on it? Like most of us at this day and age, like you're lucky if you can count on one hand. I mean, that's probably pushing it. How many times you actually like got all gussied up and went out with a group of friends and maybe got a little too carried away, right? Like, so the point he's trying to make is this happens way less. And then when you bring that down to like the current day 20 to 30-year-old, he's like, they're just not doing it like at all. And he goes on to say a handful of reasons as to why he thinks this is. Now, I hate bringing this fucking time up, but COVID gets factored into this, obviously, right? And this sort of is, in his opinion, the start of the new kind of subconscious way of thinking that, like, hey, we can just get away with staying home, or fuck it, let's just Netflix, get a bottle of booze, and get carried away at home, whatever, right? So people became more sedimentary during that time because they were forced to. And then it's just sort of carried on, right? The other one, the point that you just brought up is a great one. I mean, it's just outrageously expensive to go and do that, right? And the other thing, bringing Vegas into the loop here, and I just looked this up because he brought it up, and I was like, I hadn't heard this stat, and he didn't actually give figures, but he just said Vegas attendance is like drastically down,
Yeah.
like current day, right? Like it's just trending down fast. And anyway, I just looked this up. So in 2024, it said that Vegas welcomed 41.7 million visitors, up from 23. So you got to think from 2020, right? It's most likely gone up. I should see if I can find some stats pre 2020 because that would most likely be telling. But then it said in May of 25, visitors dropped by 6.5% year over year. In June of 25, visitation declined by 11.3%. Like when you're talking millions of people, 11% is a lot, you know? And you're
Yeah.
depending on everybody showing up with fat wallets and like one change of clothes, right? So they're going to buy shit. They're going to get ripped on. They're going to eat. They're going to shows. They're going to whatever. Like that's a huge hit in each and every one of those businesses, bottom line. And then
Now,
bringing it into like the real world, like you just said, SEMA, had like vacant booths. I'm like, I don't remember ever hearing that. And maybe I shouldn't make it sound like that, like I've never heard it. It's most likely happened more often over the last couple of years, but like you go back to 2010, I mean, which I've never been to Vegas, just for the record, but like I don't ever remember hearing anyone that had been come back and say, yeah, there was vacancy or there was, open spots. It was
yeah,
just like a
it
fist
was
fight to get your booth.
Vegas was still busy, and there was another convention going on as well. Because I had sort of heard, a friend of ours, and you really don't know what to believe to a certain extent unless you can witness it with your own eyes. Because we were pretty much told like, oh, the casinos are empty, nobody's going, this, that, and the next thing, and it definitely felt. If you're saying 10, 11%, I'd say that's probably pretty accurate. It's
Okay,
not
so
like
to you, it
when
felt down by
it
10
did
or
it did
so.
feel down, like, the streets were still busy, everything else, and of course, they're setting up for F1, which
Mm.
that creates a bunch of additional kinda congestion and noise because they race on the streets there, um, so, definitely not empty. With that said, and I don't remember if we talked about this before or not on the last pod, so, another friend was trying to get into the show and was going through the registration process because I was trying to
Yeah.
get him through the infamous project. And he had pretty much stopped his registration because it was just like they'd made it so difficult. So part of me in my mind was like, okay, is attendance down because SEMA's made registration like almost like applying for an immigration visa. Like it's
Right.
so convoluted that you just want to give up and not fucking do it. So are they shooting themselves in the foot? Was sort of the first question. And then, he ends up getting a random email saying, "Oh, your registration's approved, whatever." So it's sort of like we're like, "Oh fuck, you know,
Right.
we're hurting ourselves by this stupid registration process. Just anybody who's got an email and basic registration details, approve them to get them into the show." But then again, with my own eyes and going there, it's like, okay, well, where are these booths? Why is that corner empty? And they're actually redoing the front side of the convention center, which took up a lot of like construction-y space that used to be filled with display cars outdoors that were not there, or like not another
Well,
area designated to make up for that space not being available. So it's like, okay, genuinely speaking, like exhibitors are down, attendance seems a little light. Easy to catch transportation, get around. Then I'm like looking at the casino, and the biggest thing was like remembering how long the lineup was for my little bagel shop that I used to,
mm,
that I even went to every morning, right? And um, that probably, yeah, 10-15% lighter. And
right.
I had 3 days to compare it. Now on the Friday, last day of SEMA, going into the weekend, fucking absolute zoo and shit show. Now,
Mm,
again, same time, this whole government shutdown. Be careful about your flights. TSA is going to be delayed because I think they were doing a reduction there as well, which kind of made things look a lot fucking busier than maybe they needed to be. Um, but then I did hear from another source that I could be wrong with this, but this is what I heard. I heard that during COVID, because, and I think this is specific to MGM, um, they sold the land that the casinos were on and leased the land back, like renting.
mm,
And the rent is something like $500 million a year or something absolutely insane. Um, in order to try and make up for money lost and everything, they got rid of the buffets, they got rid of a lot of the free valet parking, and all of these perks that used to attract a lot of the locals to come and gamble on the strip. And what it's done is it's actually pushed them away so that now they go to the places that offer those things that cater to you as a local. Because normally, as a local, you don't go where the tourists go. But if you can have that night out of town and you can take advantage of, free valet and having a good time and whatever, then you know what I mean?
you
But
do
you
it.
take that away. Well, is that the 10-11% that they're missing inside the casinos? And the thing that makes that interesting to me, that statistic, is that Dubai is made up of 10% local and 90% expatriates and visitors.
Right.
So it's almost based on what I heard over here versus what you're telling me over here. It's like all we did was take the locals out of the strip, and that's sort of the result. And that result is a huge, like you said, like 10%. And when we're talking $500 million a year in rent on lease space, like
Yeah, it's big.
does that bankrupt casinos? Like, are they going in, changing the algorithms, not having as many winners? You know what I
Yeah,
mean, on the slot machines and everything else to try and make up the deficit. Like, um, you know, $12 for a bottle of beer in some
yeah,
spots. Like it's like I've figured out, like you gamble, they'll bring you drinks and you're just tipping for the drinks. But like, man, when you, depending on what you're playing, if you're playing dollar machines or $5 machines, or even hell, if you do a 25-cent machine and you're doing max bet, um, well, shit, I was on a 10-cent machine. I did max bet. It was $88 a push
really.
or a pull, whatever. Like
Yeah,
you can pull, like a lot of the or the machines are
yeah,
a push now, right? Um, So like, yeah, you can go through a lot of money real damn fast. Um, Brittany did win 520 bucks though. So we came out
nice.
all right.
Yeah,
But yeah, so all
Well,
these things, right? Like that kind of just make you, it's like the thing of statistics, right? When you hear stuff and you
yeah,
got to kind of read in between the lines. And that's why I'm sort of trying to like piecemeal some of this information together. Cause with that said, flying sucks now. It really makes you wonder if people like, I'd like to know just how many flights are actually flying and how many people are traveling in general comparatively pre-COVID, post-COVID, all this shit.
yeah,
Because it's just it's a weird world, and you know what I mean, just with the economy and everything else, man. Like, I don't know.
yeah. No, for sure. I don't I know with these types of discussions, like, context really matters. You start applying too many perceptions and you can come out with some really skewed data. But I think it's safe to say that the landscape has changed, right? Like, when you look at it from what we were doing in our 20s and 30s to what the current day folks are doing,
Oh yeah.
it's a it's a like, people are home campers now, right? Netflix and doing whatever, just hanging out, laying low for many reasons. It's expensive to go out. I think it's just become kind of subconsciously convenient, right? Because we're sort of bred, or we've been like, I guess where I'm going with all this is, even me, who likes to think that I kind of hover above a lot of the noise of, like, I don't know what makes, say, like, a mainstream individual. I like to think that I can kind of feel my way through that fog, and I don't like to think of myself as being one of them. I was like, "Ooh, Jesus," like, whether I like it or not, and if, even though I can justify the reasons to myself as to why I'm not going out more or whatever, I'm like, "Fuck," like, I've become fairly sedimentary. And again, I've got all the excuses in the world too, right? Kids and holy fuck, I don't even know, right? All the stuff. But it really made me think. And I don't know, this is kind of getting into the tinfoily hat end of things, but, like, you know, over this period of time, it's become a hell of a lot more convenient to just stay home and get your shopping brought to you. And, like, all these little things that, if you're not careful, you could be walking yourself into a firing squad, right? And it really got me thinking, like, kind of reflecting on my own life a bit, and I was like, "Huh, no shit," right? Because think about, your life and my life are fairly similar in what we do on a daily basis, right? If you got a video you're going to edit, or you're going to whatever, right? Because we exist in this online world, we can justify that to ourselves as, like, why we're at home, or why we're in the office, or why we're whatever. But then, you know, you start thinking to yourself, like, why the fuck aren't I getting out more? Right? Like, because when you're out and you're out with friends, and maybe they brought friends that you've never met before, like, ideas are forming and conversations are being had about this, that, and the other thing. Whereas when we're sitting at home in front of your favorite editing software, you're not doing any of that, right?
Well, it's funny. So there's two things. So I hope I don't forget the other one. Just remind me that there was another thing that I was supposed to talk about. But I was talking with some friends about this when I was up in Canada, to the point of like, you remember when you just drive up to your buddy's place, like you'd fucking show up.
I wouldn't even phone.
Yeah,
Like,
you
just
just show
go.
up, like, yeah, whatever. Like they're either in the garage or they're messing around, or you cross them because they were driving on their way to see you, or some
Yeah.
bullshit. And now it's like, oh, I better fuck, I'm in the area. Maybe I'll just shoot him a text. Like, you're not even gonna
Yeah.
call. You're gonna shoot a text, like, hey, are you around? Like, am I disturbing you? Like, hey, like, like, it's
Yeah.
it's amazing how disconnected we've become when technically we're more connected than ever.
What would
Uh,
go through what would you and Brett say to each other if you're sitting on the couch and the doorbell rang right now? "Who the fuck is that?"
well, you're grabbing a
Right?
fucking gun.
I know, but going back to the '90s, you're like, "Huh, who could that be?"
Yeah,
Right?
no,
Doo-doo-doo.
exactly. No,
Yeah,
100%. And so the other thing that I kind of find interesting, and I'm speaking pre-COVID here, and I'd have to go back in order to validate this, but just to kind of put a little bit of stuff, because I feel like things have probably changed a little bit, but not tremendously in terms of this scenario. So in Dubai, they had what were called brunches, which we have brunches here.
Yeah.
However, a brunch in Dubai is something that normally took place on Fridays, which Fridays were the Saturdays there. So Thursday was your last day of the week. Friday, Saturday was your weekend. Sunday, which brilliant, lines up with how the calendar works if you think about it, because the calendar, your fucking week starts on Sunday. So just
Yeah.
saying. I think they've since changed this. Like they went to, because of like day trading and all this, like working with the rest of the world. I'm pretty sure the weekend's a weekend. But, anyways, let's just say the equivalent of Saturday, you would most likely be going to a brunch in Dubai. The brunch in Dubai would start somewhere around 11 a.m., typically let out around 3 or 4 p.m. You could go to a place for, I would say, on the low side, $80, and it could go up from there, depending how bougie or how crazy you want to be. You are most likely going to, dress up, get ready, do your thing, go with whoever you're going, meet a group of friends, and you're going to have a variety of whatever food that you want. And you are going to have bottomless booze for the entire time.
Right. You're crawling out of there.
You're crawling out of there. That was the culture and the norm, whether you were in your 20s or you were, you know,
80.
doing some post retirement, whatever, in your 60s. And, that's where I really started taking an opinion to the Brits outside of whatever, London or England or whatever, right? Um, they just get a little too out of control for my liking. But um, people had a good time, and for like a reasonable, and then, like, a lot of people were like, "Oh, it's a lot of money," or whatever. But like, as those 10 years of my experience in Dubai happen, where I was thinking that, oh man, $8 for a beer or $10 for an old fashioned seems cheap or steep. And then I'd come home to visit, and like, it's just, and this has all happened within whatever these 15 years now, because I've been back for 5. But during that 10-year, that inflation, that, or that generation that we're talking about, right? So these people like in their 20s and their 30s, because I was in my 30s going to my 40s when this was happening, right?
Yeah.
Those prices were like exponentially going up here. And then all of a sudden it was like, holy shit. By the time I was leaving Dubai, the drinks were substantially cheaper. You were going out and partying and having a good time cheaper. It was like livable. So like, I can completely see and understand like this shift in that next generation of just like, how can you justify that? And like, now going out and you see these drinks, like they're 18, 20, $22 sometimes for like a crazy old fashioned or whatever
Something
crazy
fancy. Yeah.
mixology style drink that's out there. Um, so it's just, that is really odd. So like, to your tinfoil hat idea or scheme, it's like, is it just the inflation that is caused and just priced people out of it? Because I feel like in other places, other countries, that it's cheaper or more affordable, people are still taking advantage and doing those things because it makes more sense. Like drinking like top high end quality drinks, bottomless style, for under $100. Like, man, that'd be 5 drinks here, like 4 drinks,
Yeah.
and you're not even eating. There, you're eating, and you're eating good. So
Yeah.
amazing value. Now, who knows? Maybe your entry level cost there now with some inflation and shit's like $150, but shit, even at that, um, So I'd be
Yeah,
curious to know in some of these, like, what is it like in Europe right now? What is it like in, I don't know, some of these other countries? Hell, even like Mexico. The Mexicans like to party. I feel like they party no matter what.
true. Yeah, like the thing that this whole topic left me thinking about was like, is this one of those scenarios? It's kind of like the directions as to how to boil a frog, right? Don't just pitch them in the hot water, right? Slowly crank the temp. And I couldn't help but think that even though I think of myself as someone that kind of operates outside of all this stuff, I'm like, yeah, you know what? Like I have become way more sedimentary. And, you know, during this, I mean, we could even apply this to say some of our, professional endeavors like YouTube, right? Like how convenient is it to just go on YouTube? And I get all the arguments, right? YouTube, whatever topic you want to watch something on, you can find it on there, right? So I get it. But it's like, would you have done that in your 20s? Maybe if it was available to you, but like we were all so fucking busy, like going out and doing the thing. And the point that I really want to drive home, I maybe should have brought this up a little earlier, but like when you're out in and amongst groups of people face to face in person doing the thing, like that's I think how we're meant to do it. We're not meant to do what we're doing right now, even though this is pretty good because you're in Texas and I'm up here in Canada. But like, sure, we're looking at each other, but we're doing it through a screen,
Yeah.
right? Like, subconsciously, what is this doing to us? And it's very convenient, like really convenient. It left me thinking too, like, because I know anyone that's got any kind of social media app on their phone, like, we can all admit that sometimes it's really nice to just sit there and get carpal tunnel in your thumb, swiping and laughing and, showing your better half something or whatever. But it's like, why the fuck aren't I looking her in the eye right now and talking about Lord knows what? You know what I mean? Like, why are we doing this? And I, I guess it's maybe because it's all by design. Like
Well,
this is what we're I don't know, the powers that be want is like all of us sitting at home. Don't go out and congregate. Like don't group up because that's when like somebody has an idea and everybody else goes, "Huh, no shit, that's not a bad idea." And as long as we're doing this all through screen, it is or can be controlled by somebody else. What you see, when you see it, how you see it, on and on and on.
oh, 100%. I think that's why there's a lot of this, come back into the office, even though, I mean, like, people are going to waste time whether they're working at home or they're going to waste time at work doing water cooler discussions or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just how well and efficient and productive is your employee and under um, said scenarios or circumstances. And I think to the point where, like you said, everything is just so diluted now. And perfect
And
example,
easy to come by too, right? Like,
right?
it's
Yeah. So,
easy to watch Sema through your phone versus going
well, and it's
or
even the motivation to like do stuff. And I think that this is, kind of where things cascade, right? Like FoxBody John, the neighbor's like, man, I need the CV boots fucking cracked in my Ram. I need to swap the axles or do whatever. I watch this YouTube video. Can I come over on the lift and get it done? I'm like, no problem. So he comes over yesterday, gets his wheels off. I take a call, and it's probably about 10 minutes. I was on the phone and I saw both wheels were off, and I saw him working on a brake caliper. And I get off the phone and I come back in. I'm like, "What are you doing, dude?" He's like, "Fuck it, I'm not doing this. I'm putting the wheel back on." And I'm
right?
like, "Well, what happened?" He's like, "Well, I took the caliper off, and the rotor started shaking and blah blah blah." And I'm just like, "Dude, fucking take a breath." And like I understand the thing is like we all expect shit to happen like miraculously, like Amazon Prime
Like on
sustainably.
YouTube.
Yeah, like on YouTube, and he's like, "Oh, they're making it look so easy on here," which I have to say, um, the whole experience in doing these axles in the front, was a lot easier than I thought it was gonna be. Nothing broke, nothing snapped. There was no leaking transmission fluid out of my hands anywhere. Um, whatever, like 45 minutes aside, if that. Probably the first side, the second side was even faster. And it's just like, how quick are people to give up on stuff now because they
Yeah.
don't want to do it? And then you take that mentality and you translate that to the people that are actually like, if you went to a shop and are supposed to be doing this every single day as their job, hating life, not wanting to do it. Like that's generally what an average mechanic ends up doing. Hence why you got talked out of doing it when you were younger.
Yeah.
Um, and like you compound that on top of what we're going through right now, and you wonder why labor's so high and you can't find people to do good work and everything else. It's just because like the whole status and like likes and views and this and that and the next thing is just it's blinding people to the point of like you need to fucking work. You need to immerse yourself in a situation and give a fuck if you're actually going to get anywhere. Like that's where things are going to implode. So, I
Yeah.
guess that's why I say like we're literally turning into like third world to the point of we as a society are going to have to hit rock bottom to realize, holy fuck, we can't get away with doing things like this anymore. We're going to have to bust our ass. And here we are all complaining about the immigrants or the people that will work cheaper or do stuff that are hustling. Like crackheads legitimately are outperforming everyday average Joes because they're too
They
fucking
are.
lazy to do work. And they're getting their fix.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
like
we're
they get to be whacked out for however many hours a day. Just put a little bit of hustle in. That hustle is fucking more better work than most the average people are putting out. So I don't
yeah,
like
we're getting fat and lazy.
the only thing that I can say, dude, and I guess it's a question for you is, I do believe surround yourself with like-minded people. It's that whole thing, misery loves company. If you surround yourself with fucking negative people, they're gonna bring you down. You're gonna be like just you're going to go downhill quick, and that's no way to live life. So find those people. And that's what I like about the US over Canada. Way more population, more people. There is more opportunity in areas to have like minded friends and amigos around. So I guess my question would be is imagine you live down the street and not in Canada. Do you feel that this way, your lifestyle that you just talked about would change any?
Yeah, it's a kind of the $1,000,000 question for us because,
Like,
uh,
I would hope that you would just fucking roll up here and not fucking send me a text. I
right.
genuinely
Yeah. No, I think of that stuff quite often too, and I grew up in a small enough town that, like, that just literally was the way of the world, right? You didn't send any sort of smoke signal, you were just showing up, right? And I've tried to keep that, as part of me for sure. But at the same time, you do have to kind of appreciate the scheduling of people and whatever else, right? So it's kind of like, I don't know, maybe they're not even home and I'm just wasting my time. And I say it a lot, I've got a our family, we're a pretty busy family. So, yeah, maybe I've lost it a little bit, but uh, I don't know. You got to know your company too, right? Who you're just doing the flybys with. But yeah, I
it's
just,
okay. You can get your groove back. You just need to, like I say,
yeah,
surround yourself around a different bunch, and we'll have a discussion in the future about how Gary got his groove back.
yeah. Stella. Um, yeah. Well, I just, the thing of all this that I guess worries me, and I hope that maybe us having this conversation with the small group of ears that are going to hear it is you maybe do a little bit of reflecting upon this, right? And just treat it as a little bit of a warning that, like, yeah, maybe I am getting a little too, comfortable, or a little too sedimentary, or a little too whatever. Because not that there's anything bad with being sedimentary, as long as you can kind of observe yourself from the outside in and be like, okay, am I just like, you know, bullshitting myself? And, by how air quote busy I am, but I'm literally just sitting there on the couch every night scrolling or watching the fucking news, which will rot the brain right out of your head, or whatever, you know? I can't remember if I talked to you this about this or not, bud, but me and the wife took the dog around the block the other night, and I couldn't help but notice, like, I would probably say 95% of the homes that we walked by, and this kind of sounds a little creepy, but it's fairly obvious when you see, current day 75 plus inch TVs nuking people's eyes, right? Like, it's a bright light. But I was like, holy shit, like, it's 8 o'clock at night and like all those TVs are on, right? And it was, well, the TVs are big, so you can almost make out what the programming is. And it's like, yeah, like news or like cable related shit, which to me is kind of foreign because we haven't had cable in, fuck, man, 15 years, I bet. You know, I was just sick and tired of every 6 months, right? The last time you phoned in to bitch wears out, and now they're charging you more. And I'm like, what are we paying for? I can't even find anything I want to watch on here anyway. Fuck it, we're done, right? And we haven't had cable since. Little side note, with us traveling with the kids' sports and stuff, you're in hotels a lot, and there's obviously cable in the hotel TV. And we'll like turn that on and be watching a show, and it's like, man, it feels like we just watched 4 minutes of whatever movie or program, and it's an ad. Like, it's a commercial. I'm like, I don't even think we got to see like 20 minutes of an hour and a half long movie because it's cut for all these damn ads, right? Like, what are anyway, long-winded way of saying, like, observe yourself a little bit, right? And be careful, because this is a slippery slope, right? If you start being a little bit too sedimentary for whatever excuse you want to use that you're becoming sedimentary for, like, get out and see people and do the human thing, don't just because you FaceTimed your mom or uncle or whatever, feel like you're staying connected. Like, get out and see these fucking people, you know?
Yeah.
That's, I think, the thing that the way the world's going, that is one of the biggest worries of the theys that we always refer to that run the world. Okay. Like, you need to be with people. Okay. We're
Yeah.
like, humans need to be with other humans. And that's how we survive. If we just think we're all going to survive on our own, staring at screens and doing whatever, I hate to tell you, but I think we're heading down a slippery slope. And you combine all that with what you just said about getting fat and lazy. This is how societies crumble, folks. Two of the
Yeah.
main reasons, you know? Don't let the TV like dictate. There's lots of memes out there, and actually there was people doing these memes years ago and like cartoons and newspapers and shit, but it's kind of a picture of somebody sitting there with this bright light television screaming at them, right? And it's like, this shit, our parents told us, guys, you're gonna rot the brains out of your head, or you're whatever. Like, don't, just be careful, you know? Watch Chris and I. We won't bullshit you. I mean, we're just good old fashioned fun. But a lot of this other stuff is wrecking people, I think,
Yeah.
And I can't believe we haven't brought this up until now, but it just came to me. This overlaps or parallels with the conversation we have about the kids these days not getting their driver's licenses, right? Like, it's all these fucking little things that conglomerate up to a really big problem. At least for people like me that are wired in an old school manner, you know, freedom. Going out and seeing friends was freedom, Like, you bring how strongly you feel about travel.
Mm.
experience. And sure, it's great to just see these nice places, but the big thing, and I mean, I get this. I hope everyone else has appreciated this when Chris is talking about that too, but different ideas, different ways of doing things, different ways of seeing the world, like that's what travel does for you. That's what seeing other people do. If you just think that you can watch the fucking Travel Channel and get the same experience, you're sorely mistaken.
Yeah, very true.
You know, bit of a rant, but yeah. Anyway, listening to this guy the other day, man, it rocked me a bit. I like stuff like that though, that kind of puts you on your heels a bit, and you're like, "Ooh, Jesus, uh, you know, am I? Is this me? Like, am I doing that?" Even if, like I say, I think of myself as someone that's not. Um, I think it's good to pressure test yourself every once in a while and
Yeah.
just observe yourself, right? Kind of watch yourself go through a day and be like, "Ooh, yeah, like I don't like that what I'm doing these days or whatever," right?
Well,
Um
hey, we're getting into the end of the calendar year where New Year's resolutions and all that are supposed to typically form. And I don't think there's
reflections,
any,
yeah.
yeah, there's no more room for excuses or pandemics or any of that shit to get in the way. Um, I think it's an opportunity for everybody to take some shit seriously and map out some goals and all that. Cause, I get it. It's, man, it was funny too. I'm sure you saw the posts from Donkey about the, some of the so-called sports fans after the Blue Jays lost
Yeah.
um,
I
the
didn't run
finals.
down any of those rabbit holes, but yeah, it looked like it got like you were kind of going like, are these real people? Like, is this
Yeah,
really what
like
people are
just,
saying?
oh, it's a dark time and whatever. And like, I could kind of see, like, I think it's absolutely ridiculous that it gets associated with a sports team losing. And like, you got some people way out in left field, whining about America, where there's probably more Americans on the Blue Jays than
Right.
Canadians. You know what I mean? Like just stupid people with stupid thoughts. But um, like we are in a challenging time. I get that, and I can see some of I mean the worries or the concerns or whatever. But we need to find ways to turn those things into positives. You know what I mean? Like
Well,
um,
not sorry, buddy, to cut you off. I was just going to add to that a bit. Not, I was going to say not only that, but like, we, when I say we, I mean all of us, like all of us in non positions of power, let's just say, right? Like the low lifes, the peasants, the whatever, the taxpayers. Okay. That's who I'm referring to. We have a lot more in common than we do not, right?
mm,
And this goes for political affiliations. This goes for fucking what sports team you cheer for. This goes for whatever. Ladies and gentlemen, let me be the first to tell you, or maybe other people are too, but like, do not underestimate what pitting yourself against your fellow man is really doing for you. It's not doing anything for you, actually. It's helping the powers that be, the fucking people that we chip the tax money up to. Okay. They get more powerful when they pit us against each other.
yeah.
So observe that and think about that for whatever it's worth. I mean, I'm just some dumb fuck. I'm the first one to say that, but honest to God, this is kind of where I was going with this whole conversation. Go out for beers, talk to people, find out what's going on in their brain. If they are of a different political affiliation or whatever, ask them why. Like go back and forth and have that conversation with them. Because if you just sit at home and throw rocks at each other in the Facebook comments, it's only going to get worse from here, guys. It really, truly will.
Yeah.
Because we're all in this together, man. You know, like, sorry, I kind of stole your thunder on that, but like, we, again, we have way more in common than we don't. And there's a reason that when you look at the world from 10,000 feet, it is a whole lot of like, you're either in this group or that group, right? Right down to the sports we watch, which is like probably one of the most ridiculous. Actually, to put an automotive flair on it, it's like Dodge versus Chev. You know what I mean? It's like, guys, what are we fucking doing here? You know,
Yeah.
like really. I can't even believe that that stuff still goes on, but anyway, it does. But big picture here, like it's all about separation, okay? And what I'm trying to promote and or bring attention to is it's not about separation, guys, at least not for us peasants. We got to stick together. We got to find common ground, okay? We all got to work together. And it comes from going for beers and wings and fucking whatever else, you know? Getting together in person. Cuz yeah, like seeing, like you were saying, some of those comments about stuff, you're like, holy shit. Like, what type of energy are you existing with?
Yeah.
That's just, I can't even fucking fathom that. You know? I think I got enough of my own problems with, actually, this is a whole nother thing, but I got a little detonation going on in the green coupe. And since it went on, it's one of those silly little things that just sits in your ass, right? And you're like, fuck, where, why, who, when, right? Where to from here, all that stuff. Um, but I know that like that doesn't stop my children from breathing. You know what I mean? Like that is such a silly thing. Like I can catch myself and kind of laugh at myself for it. But are the people that are making these comments about, you know, the Blue Jays losing and the Dodgers winning, are they capable of catching themselves? Or are they like, I don't know, beating their dog right now because of it? You know what I mean? Like it sort of scares me a bit.
Yeah. No, man, it's
We're sharing the roads with those people, dude.
oh, I
Like,
know. And that's the scary
fuck.
part, right? Like I I don't know if I made the joke on here or if it was too yeah, I did, right? Like that we're gonna become the cult.
Right.
You know, like,
Yeah.
are we the weird ones? But yeah, no, it's an interesting time, and as weird, as disappointing, as frustrating, as whatever. And I'm saying this so that I can try and tell myself to even take my own advice at times. Brittany actually reminds me, she's like, you say a lot that you need to practice more often. I'm like, well, that's why I say it because it's easier said than done sometimes. But
Yeah.
we all get those moments, whether it's motivation on our cars or getting up to go to work or dealing with whatever bullshit that's in the news every day. Um, yeah, we just need to do better. Like we really do. And remember, our time here is short. And yeah, if you don't
Very
have a
true.
good network or support system or whatever it is, go out and find it like Gary said. Like maybe that's just it, you got the wrong people around you. Sometimes family can be toxic, friends can be toxic. I say friends are the family you choose, so choose the right ones. And
Yeah. The thing I say to my kids all the time is it's hard to fly with the eagles when you're surrounded by turkeys,
yeah,
you know? Dude, actually funny, you said that is, I took my own advice yesterday and we brought this up. I think it was on last week's pod. We were talking about fires and, perfect time of year where you got to rotate, you get cold on one half. We went and had a fire last night. And I thought to myself going into it, which is pretty much justification as to how I've made excuses to like not go and do those things. I was like, ah, fuck. But like, do I want to go through all the shit of like, shit, where's my axe? Where's my chainsaw? Like all the stuff, right? And I
gonna
caught
smell
myself. I'm
like
like,
smoke and blah blah blah.
yeah, clean up the next day,
Yeah,
like we were going to go on the quad and I'm like, do I want to be bothered with like getting the mud off of it the following day or week? And anyway, it was as my mind's going through all that, I'm like, shut the fuck up, loser. Go have a fire. Like what are you talking about? So we did, and it was great, and the fucking kids had a blast, and like just and it's such simple enjoyment, you know good view, wood crackling, cold beer, like just all those simple things, good people. It was funny actually. It was just me and the kids were going to go do it. The wife was out of town with Abby. And then my buddy just throws a Hail Mary text at me. He's like, "Hey, you want to go up the mountain?" I'm like, "Fuck, man, I'm literally just out buying hot dogs right now. Like, we're going." He's like, "Sweet, see you there." So anyway, this group of us, and they live a similar life to us too. They got 3 girls, they're all in sports and shit. So very rarely do you have a day you can go and do this, which is maybe another excuse. But anyway, they came up too. And then there was another couple, their kids were out doing something and they came up and yeah, we just had a great time.
Yes.
And sure, I got all of those things that I was previously worrying about, causing me just more work throughout the next week. But I don't know, I'm kind of looking at it going like, fuck yeah, right? I got a muddy quad, I got a chainsaw covered in oil and fucking sawdust and everything else, but we did it. Like, it had a absolute blast, you know?
Nice. Well, that's good,
Yeah,
man.
man.
I
I know,
wanna have a
right?
fire too, but we got a damn burn ban on, so I'm like, "God damn it."
Right.
So
Actually, dude, so here's an interesting little piece of info on this. It's been so long since we've been up to this one spot. Uh, like the the time before last night that we had been up there was previous to that fire where we got evacuated a couple summers ago. Man, that whole fucking mountain got nuked. Like, it's actually almost kind of eerie going up there, especially this time of year, because all the grass is turning yellow and everything else. But it's come up real high. I mean, I don't ever remember seeing the grass, but that's what burns do, right? Like, Mother Nature comes through, kind of nukes everything, and it all reseeds and grows again, right? But all the trees and stuff, and we were going up just as the sun was going down. And I mean, if you were I was kind of waiting for the kids to say something to me. Like, I was going to say, if you were a little younger, you'd be like, "Oof, this is kind of a creepy trail we're on right now." Cause it's
right.
just gnarled up wood, black, charred black. Now, the real nice part about it is there's firewood everywhere. I mean, you don't
Yeah.
have to go up there and be like, "Oh, that one's still green. Don't cut it." They're all fucking dead. So more than enough wood to be burned. But yeah, man, it was a really good time. And it crossed my mind, the conversation we had about fires. And then there was this whole podcast I listened to this past week. I was like, I'm going. Fuck this. We're doing it. Right. Even if it's just me
Nice.
and the kids, we're getting out of cell service and just having some fun.
Very nice. Well, shit,
Yeah.
dude. There we go. Let's end her on a high note.
Deal. Okay, buddy. Well, folks, summing her all up, get out there and have a couple drinks or whatever it is you do. You know what I mean? Get out there, see some friends, meet some new ones. You
Yeah.
know, don't get stuck on the couch. Okay. Uh, Anybody that's ever been caught in a doom scroll, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Nobody gets out of one of those and goes, "Oh God, I feel so much better now." Right. So get get out and light a fire. Go, like, have some fun. Do some just simple stuff because
Yeah,
it's easy to lose sight of fast. So yeah.
sure
On
is.
that note, let's sum her up there, eh?
Yeah. All right, till
All right.
next week.
Yeah. Take care, folks.